This is Joe Peters with MomFit with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the H.E.R Network on Single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective app stores, iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, make sure to rate the app and leave a comment. The app is free. Single TV can also be reached through Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smart TVs since 2016. And if you are not following me yet, please make sure to go Joe Unicorn Coach at Instagram, Facebook. I handle my own social media. So if you have a question, a challenge, anything related to motherhood and how to win the marathon of life, please send me a message. And if I don't know the answer, I will find an expert like Heather that will come join us and help us to figure out. Today, we are going to be talking about something amazing, and that is how moms can build a foundation of worthiness from the inside out. And Heather is here to help us to spark that. Now, I'm super excited to have Heather here. Heather is an award winning business owner and global leader with over 20 years as an entrepreneur. She is an achiever of unrealistic dreams. Heather works centers around helping you belong to yourself first. She's not here to tell you what to do or how to do it. She's here to help you to find the answers inside of yourself. Yes, yes. When you create a foundation of worthiness, courage, and confidence from the inside, it shifts the way that you show up in the world and support you in pursuing your passions and having the life that you love. As a celebrate public speaker, Heather inspires audiences and provides attendees with the tools they need to live a bold and successful life on their own terms. Heather is a mom of four all girls who left a day who left a decade long marriage and came out, yes, of the closet, personally and professionally. She's also a Broadway producer and the author of the best selling books, Fuck Fearless. And
You probably don't get to say that very often, do you, Joe? Sorry.
yeah, we will do the beep. Making the Brave Leap, Great Gratitude Journal. Shift your focus and grow gratefully. A gratitude journal for kids and families. Heather is also the co-host and executive producer of What It Chance, the podcast about embracing opportunity and taking international risk in your creative life. When Heather is not coaching, podcasting, volunteering, being a mom of four, or hanging out with her family, you probably will find her traveling, reading at the theater, or in long walks with friends. Heather, it's a pleasure to have you here. The first thing that I want to ask you is to tell us a little bit about your phrase. Every guest that is come to the show, I ask them to tell us a little bit about a phrase. And your phrase was everything you really want is just on the other side of being uncomfortable. Why we
Yeah.
don't start there? And then I want to hear a little bit more about who you are and how you get to do what you do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. Everything you want really is just on the other side of uncomfortable because we have to be stretching ourselves to be growing. And all of the work that I do that you had mentioned earlier, helping every single person build a foundation of enoughness and worthiness from the inside out, that can be very uncomfortable. Putting ourselves first and belonging to ourselves, especially as moms. Oh my goodness, that is such a difficult thing to do. And it's very uncomfortable because society teaches us that we're supposed to constantly sacrifice ourselves for the greater good of our children and our partners and our families. And believe it or not, the science has even caught up with that being ridiculous. It's not just a thing that I think, it's a thing that we know that's been proven. If you are constantly sacrificing yourself, you're not really going to be as fantastic as you want to be for the people you love. And it's very uncomfortable to be honest about that, to take stock of that and then shift, put yourself first, take care of yourself so that you can be the healthiest, most aligned version for your kids who are watching. That's how you can be the best role model for them.
I love, love, love that one and love the concept of that. Uh, Being uncomfortable is part of our lifelong journey of expanding that comfort zone and growing. And I love how you close that of our children are going to learn what we do, not what we
Yeah.
said. So we need to
Yeah.
walk the talk. Now, let's gonna talk a little bit about you and how you get to do what you do on helping moms and females to have the answers within and create that foundation of worthiness in the inside.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I have been an entrepreneur for most of my entire adult life. I realized very quickly out of college that while I work well with people, I don't work well for people. And so I started my business. I didn't start as a coach. I started as a luxury event and wedding planner. And then when I went through my own personal transformation that you had mentioned, when I came out and I sort of burned my whole life and my whole business to the ground and rebuilt it this time on my own terms. I was able to build in all of the things that helped me show up for myself into a platform to support clients. And as with most things, it's this ever growing learning experience, constantly practicing what I have coined the brave method. It's what my book is about. We can call it F fearless if you if you don't want to bleep it out. It is a method for helping you problem solve, dream, design, build, and actually have a life that you are madly in love with. So these are the steps that I really took. And over the course of the last couple of years, it's become very, very clear, and the clients have been telling me that the gift that I most give folks is their ability to hear their own voice, to trust themselves, to grow their intuition, and then to live into whatever it is that they want. And those can be, it can be any kind of aspiration. It doesn't have to be something that the rest of the world is going to deem huge. It's about you. It's about understanding what you want. And so I really focus on finding bite-sized ways for everybody to show up for themselves in your busy, crazy mom life because we are doing all the things. And I want you to drop all the excuses, get a little uncomfortable, and make time for yourself. So, what I offer is called the Spark Collective, and it's a membership that is $8 a month. And we give you intuitive weekly journal prompts. I pull those from Human Design. I'm a certified human design coach. And then each month, I give a content drop that is just 10 or 15 minutes that you can show up, do once or twice a week, whenever you want, wherever you want. That pulls from all of my different training. So NLP, EFT, time sensitivities, hypnosis, success coaching, positive psychology. Like the list is very long. So I kind of merge all of those things into something that is really unique to me. And it allows everybody to say yes to themselves because it doesn't require too much time or too much money. There's no excuse to not give yourself the love and attention that you deserve.
Okay, great. Now let's gonna talk a little bit about um, how to seek answers from the inside. And
Mm,
I want you to share a little bit from the motherhood perspective and focus on that part. That's the one what we are talking in the show with how we can go into that seeking from the inside, even when society and family and friends and everybody tend to have an opinion, tend to have advice, tend to have a better way to do things than
yeah.
us as moms. So, how we can balance that seeking from the inside and trust that even when we have that little voice saying, well, why you don't just listen to what mother-in-law or mom or Instagram is saying? So what are some of the things that moms can start doing to get inspired to seek their answers where they actually have them, that is inside of them?
Yeah, yeah, such a great question, and you're absolutely right that everybody has an opinion and everybody's gonna share it with you, whether you've asked them to or not, and that does train us from the time we're little kids, so think about your own little kids to not trust ourselves. If everybody's always telling you what to do, then we internalize that as, "Well, we don't know what to do on our own." So you have an opportunity to sort of rewrite that narrative. Um, as you're building your own foundation of awareness and worthiness and intuition, you can guide your children to do the same thing. So, one of the ways that I have found most successful to do that is actually through understanding my own human design, because through human design is a modern scientific self discovery method based on several different ancient philosophies: the Chinese I Ching, Kabbalah, Buddhism, quantum physics, astrology, and the chakra system. And we each have a very unique authority, way that we make decisions, and we feel our intuition in our bodies in unique ways. So there's some really cool science behind that. If you don't know human design or you're not interested, just pay attention. Sit quietly with yourself when you're trying to make decisions and feel into it, literally. And I'll bet many of you listening, you kind of know those mama bear instincts, right? How do they physically show up for you in your body? Does it feel like an opening? Does it feel like a closing? Does it a tingle in your neck, or is it something in your belly? Start to understand your own physical clues. That's your intuition. Everybody has it. It's all there. And then make those decisions around that. But asking yourself good questions. I recently had a client who actually is a man, and he found out his wife is pregnant. And he said, I don't know how to be a good parent. And now my oldest daughter is 19 years old, and sometimes I don't can fully tell you I don't know how to be a good parent. We play that game a lot, right? Life is complicated and parenting is definitely complicated. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned through my journey is, and I told him this, make sure your kids know that you don't have all the answers. So we're talking about trusting ourselves, we're trusting our intuition. Um, when we're constantly told that somebody else has all the answers and then we don't have the answers, it's very difficult to trust yourself. It's very difficult to believe that you bring something valuable to the table. And so the truth is, we're all just learning. There are some things we know because we have lived experiences, but we know them for us. We don't necessarily know them for everybody else. So play that game, like, where I've never been me at this phase in my life, parenting you at this phase in your life, and we're going to learn this together and we're going to make some mistakes together. That is how you grow your awareness and you grow your intuition, is by being honest and actually reflecting, looking inward. What feels good? What do I want more of? What resources do I actually have that can help me be successful? What do I want to let go of? Surrender and release is a huge, huge part of trusting yourself. That is not for me. It's not serving me. It's not helping me. Building that kind of foundation is absolutely game changing.
And that can be different for each mom, because if you are a mom that you were like, I work with my clients, if you were a people pleaser,
Yep.
had good girl syndrome, have narcissist relationships, you are so used to it to overrun and override that
100%.
instinct, that gut, that it is decalibrated. And then you are not going to feel it clear, because for decades you are being used to it to just push it down, turn it off, put other people's on. So it's matter of, first I will add to what Heather was saying, is be gentle with yourself, and
Yeah.
knowing that it will look like in an spectrum of intensity, and sometimes will be just a tiny little whisper that will get stronger and stronger as you pay attention. Now, Heather, one of the things that I want you to talk a little bit more, because it's a balance of trusting that you have all the answers within yourself, but also I love what you said, in to make sure that your children know that you don't have all the answers
For them. Yeah.
for them. And
Yeah.
then part of that, what made me think about was Dr. Shafali with her conscious parenting.
Yeah.
And part of that is how we can, as parents, as moms, make sure that we are helping them with that answers from the inside, and trust ourselves in the parenting, help them to trust themselves as children, and also be aware of when we are parenting from an ego perspective, of an ego of validation from the outside, of an ego of feeling our own needs,
Yeah.
versus from a place of helping them to develop.
Absolutely. It's so important, right? It's so important to involve children in decisions that affect them so that you can help them know what they most desire, know what works for them. So, um, instead of feeling that people pleaser gene, boy, goodness, right? I've got to put it all together. It's got to be perfect. I've got to put it out. um, Getting them involved and knowing that it's going to maybe be messy. Maybe we're not going to make decisions that we wish we'd made, or maybe we're going to literally physically make a mess, whatever it is. But inviting them to be part of that process and growing together, it's you trusting yourself as a parent, trusting your kids as a human, and teaching them to trust themselves to make good decisions. So, one of the things that I learned, I think, very early on in my parenting journey was not to say no unless there was a reason to say no. We're tired and I don't want another mess. And oh my gosh, you want to make cupcakes right now, but you're going to leave the kitchen a mess and I'm going to have to clean up the kitchen and I don't want to. So I'm just going to say no. That's not a good reason. Right. So, you know, are you saying no because it really needs to be a no? Or are you saying no because it's the easy way out? And that is you asking yourself, being internal with yourself, and it's modeling that for the kids. It's allowing them to have a voice. Bring them into your conversations. Talk to them about your own process. If you're learning more about your intuition, invite them to ask theirs. Do you ever feel that anyway? Do you ever just know something and you don't know why? That's maybe your inner voice telling you something that's important to you. You should listen to that voice, right? Bring them in on those conversations. And as you learn out loud with them and let them explore and see possibility. They're going to be so grateful for you later for taking that step. My oldest two kids, uh, I knew it all. I did, and there wasn't a lot of room for them to have differing opinions, and that backfires because that's not the way. It doesn't work really well. As my younger two, I'm like, "I don't know. We're gonna learn. I don't know." But they used to, and we was such a funny little game, like, "How do you know this, mommy?" Like, "I don't know. I just know everything, except I don't." Right? So I didn't do anybody any favors with that. Um, and we think we're supposed to know it all. We think we're supposed to have all of the answers. And the truth is, we don't. And we're not supporting our kids or ourselves when we pretend to know everything. That's that people pleasing thing where we think we're supposed to know the answers. So we have to pretend that we do. And when we show up authentically and honestly, it actually changes the game. This is fascinating. Fascinating to me, Joe. I'm not sure if it is to you, but I love to see where science and spirituality meet. And I'm was recently reading something about how scientists have been able to prove the law of attraction. Have you seen this? Have you seen this study? It's so cool, right? And so they were able to put people in a chamber and measure the vibration of the energy, and the number one, the highest vibrational energy, so the high vibration means it goes out and it comes back and people can feel it, is authenticity. I was gonna guess love when they were, like, in the audience, like, "Oh, what was it?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was gonna say love." It's not, it's authenticity. So when you're being honest to yourself and showing up authentically as you, that's the highest vibration. That helps people feel like they're part of something with you. They feel connected with you, and you get to show up as you, and that just feels better across the board.
And I think that that circled back a beautiful answer on what I was telling you into how we can realize that we are parenting from ego versus from our authentic self. And I was nodding because when my toddler started being a toddler, one of the researches that we found was how many times per day a young child hear the word no. And the research says 400 times. I still remember when I shared that with my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law like had a resistance. She was like, "That's not possible. They are
She just
exaggerating.
told you no.
That's not possible." And then I was like, "Well, even if it's half of that, we are choosing
Yeah,
to make sure that that is not the case in this house." Because the other thing that you say with the no's, and I love how you're saying like, "Do you really need to say no?" Is when you say no to everything, the things that really require a no are not as serious. Like, no, no, you cannot cross the street. If
that's right.
he or she hear no 300 times, that is another no. If they are not familiar with no, Then
Yeah.
when you say no, stop in the street, then they're going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
serious. So it's even a process of helping them,
Absolutely.
and is freaking tiring, like you were saying.
It's exhausting to say no all the time, right?
And it's exhausting to not to, right? Because we need to do, and that is part of this show, is one of the things that I realize is we are not only parenting them, we are reparenting ourselves.
Of
So
course.
it is
Yeah.
about you to be conscious and aware of your triggers, of how you react, of your wounds, and then be aware of them. And as you choose to do something else for them, that also surface that there is some healing that you need to do, and go
Absolutely.
there. I love the part of authenticity. And with those two, this is probably one of the biggest challenge that I see on moms, when we are in the show or with my clients and females, with the good girl syndrome, with the people pleaser, and is how we as moms can set boundaries for harmony when society, our families, everybody's being brainwashed us into the concept of selfless love. You are the last one, your kids are first. All of that, that said, like, that is how we show love. And that how we show love is actually, nobody teaches how to have boundaries for ourselves, and then we
Yeah.
feel guilty when we are even considering putting ourselves first and put boundaries. So
Yep.
what these moms that are hearing us around the world can start doing to not feel that guilty, start realizing that that is BS, and then, like you were saying in the pre conversation, set boundaries for harmony.
Yeah. So boundaries are important. Boundaries are the B in the brave method. I mentioned my brave method earlier, and boundaries are limits that define acceptable behavior. And you get to decide what's acceptable to you. And the first step is deciding I don't have to listen to all of those voices. And actually the number one incantation affirmation that I sort of chant in my head and out loud all day long is other people's behavior is not about me. Other people's behavior is not about me, whether it's my kids or my parents or my colleagues or my friends. It doesn't matter. The teachers at school. I don't have to do what they're doing, and what they're doing doesn't have to inform me. And I will tell you, the most difficult of all of those is my kids, because when they behave a certain way, it's very challenging to not take it personal. They're mad at me. I'm not doing a good job. No one likes me. Like all of those mom things. And the truth is, they're just worrying about themselves. I mean, could you be a terrible mom? I suppose, yes, you could be. And there may be times where we're making really poor decisions. And guarantee you there are times we're doing that, and we can apologize and we can shift that energy. But for the most part, their behavior isn't really about you. It's about their process, their learning, and their growing. So you can set boundaries with yourself to say, I'm going to walk away right now. I'm not going to react to this right now. Or I'm going to not solve this problem for my toddler or my teenager, and I'm going to let them solve this problem. Here's what happens with people pleasing. So you're talking about that people pleasing mom, and boundaries are so hard because we're afraid people will be mad at us, or they won't like us, or they will just ignore our boundaries and disrespect us. But boundaries are not about them. Boundaries are about you. So if they disrespect your boundary, then there's a consequence. If you come into my house and start yelling at my kids, then you have to leave. Or if we come into your house and you yell at my kids, we're going to leave. Like whatever you want that boundary to be, your choices. They're not about other people, they're about you. But people pleasing, this is such a fascinating way to look at it. And it's so true, but we never think about it like this. People pleasing is taking away somebody else's autonomy and right to choose for themselves. If you are trying to please people, you're trying to think in advance of what they need. You're not asking them what they want. You're not factoring in anything on their part. You're deciding for them. All of a sudden, you get to be judge and jury on what other people need. That's not the healthiest way to go. Ask people a question. Get engaged, find out what they want, and then do something with it, right? It's just such a beautiful reframe of that. People pleasing is actually harming the people you're trying to please. You're taking away their autonomy when you do that. So, boundaries help you be less of a people pleaser, level the playing field. They give everybody a clear understanding of what the expectations are, what the rules of play are. And then you have to decide. You have to set the boundaries and you have to keep them and be firm. That's a difficult thing to do, but totally worth it. And you can do it without guilt. I mean, I have a work example that's just been great for me for my entire adult career. I've been in some sort of service, and my voicemail on my phone says, "This is Heather Vickery. If you've reached me after 5 p.m. or on a weekend, I'll get back to you the next business day." Period. So that doesn't mean people won't call. It just means I'm not obligated to respond. And you can do that in parenting, you can do that in anything. Set those boundaries. The boundaries are about you and your opportunity to show up authentically and guilt-free. It's not about them.
And I will so many things that I want to share here. You did so many golden nuggets. With the behavior of our children is not about us. I think that you were saying it on like when they don't like you and that, but also that happened to me recently. How their behavior can be perceived in society. So
Yeah.
my toddler is in a phase where he doesn't share, and he's getting to a point that he push and pull hairs, and it's happening in class. So a couple of weeks ago, my nanny came back with him from class, from music class, and said that he scratched a girl to the point that the girl
Oh,
bleed.
no.
And then I feel like the worst mom. And then I was doing what you were saying. I just was in the Facebook group saying like, I don't know where he's getting this from, but I promise you, my house is a loving house. He doesn't see any of that behavior at home. And then after I sent it, I was like, why I'm putting that on me? Why his
Yeah.
behavior is a reflection of how good of a mom I am.
Yeah.
So I love that. That is not only their reaction, but also their behavior with others. It's a
Absolutely.
story of, oh, you are not a good mom. You need to be strong because they are behaving this way or because they are reacting this way.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how that is. One boundaries, I'm going to talk a little bit more about boundaries with you, and I want you to help us to see how we can practice that. One of my favorite phrases with boundaries around people pleasing is boundaries are the perfect place where I can love you and still love myself.
Yes.
That is part
Yeah.
of, I don't have to stop loving myself, and I don't have to allow things that I'm not comfortable in order to love you. And like you were saying, I love how you said, like, put what feels good for you. Then the consequence, and I love how you clarify that consequence has to be not for them, but you. What you are going to do
Mm.
when the boundary is not respect. And then the challenging part, how to hold that boundary. And one of the things that I see, especially with family members, with in-laws, with mom, with grandpas, with uncles, is that if you were not doing boundaries before, they are going to be pushback. There's going to be
Yep.
resistance because the reality, and I'm very blunt on this, I think that we teach people how to treat us. So
Of
if
course.
for
Yeah.
5, 10, 15 years, the people around us are used to it, that we are the one that always say yes, that we don't have boundaries. When we go and take a boundary, then there's going to be pushback. So why you don't tell us a little bit of how we can work on that, and maybe how we can start growing that muscle, maybe with simple boundaries first and
Yeah.
then with the most serious ones, because that is another thing that I see a lot of the time. People are like, here people here, coaches and mentors like you and me, and say like, this is how you set the boundary, this is the consequence, this is how you hold it. But then they stumble when they have that pushback from their family or friends, or when they don't respect it, and then they start second guessing if they have to follow through the consequence. So how they can do that if
Yeah.
they are just starting to learn how to put boundaries, and they, because it's more likely than not, are around people that are not going to feel very happy with them holding boundaries for themselves and their children.
Yep, absolutely. So, look, it's easier to set boundaries on the onset. It's easier to set boundaries before you start something. This is the way I'm going to do it. And that's ideal. If you have an opportunity to do that, great. But most of the time, we're shifting something that's painful or uncomfortable. The most important thing, once you've decided on a boundary, so again, I always say, look at what hurts, look at what's painful. That's where you need a boundary so that you can shift that. The most important thing is to communicate it clearly up front. Here's what's not going to work. You decide in your mind, I am not going to let, we'll just keep my same example. I'm not going to let my mother in law come and yell at my kids, but you don't tell her that there's no yelling. And then she shows up and yells, and then you're mad at her for breaking your boundary. And then you go, you have to leave. And all of a sudden, there's World War III in the family, right? Up front. Hey, I wanted to let you know that we're not yelling in this house. So we can talk, we can disagree, you can leave the room, we can do whatever, but we're not yelling at the children. And so I'm just that's just one, one example up front. She may not like it and she may push back and you can say, I get it. I know that's not what you did. That's okay. It's not a judgment on you. It's just not what we're doing. And we need you to respect our boundaries in the house or with our kids. So you want to set the boundary, you want to communicate it, and you've got to hold firm. And it's okay to remind people that this is the problem I think with boundaries is other people feel judged by your boundaries. They think you're telling them they did something wrong because you're doing something different. I can remember when my kids were young, um, especially around television. I really kept a firm hand on there was not a lot of television for my older kids. That's not the case for my younger kids, and also my older kids now tell me that was an epic fail because I put them at a disadvantage with other friends because they didn't know pop culture TV stuff. So look, you're not gonna get it right. Whatever you're doing, your kids are gonna tell you you did it wrong at some point, I promise. But my mom was like, "Well, you watch TV all the time and you're fine." And I said, "Yeah, this isn't about it's about me. It's about what I've learned and what I wanna try with my kids, and I wanna see what happens. So this has got nothing to do with how well you parented. It's just simply, I know different things, we have different information, and I wanna try it a different way, and it's my turn. I get to do that. So you get to do that. It's your turn to parent. You get to make the rules, and you get to hold firm on that, and people will change when you change yourself. You can't control anyone but yourself, and you can't change anyone but yourself. But when you change, the people around you can't help but change. It's just the way it works, right? It's the domino effect. So if you are thoughtful and conscientious about how you communicate and share, eventually they will get there. You can be kind. You can have boundaries and be kind.
I love that because I really agree with you that that is one of the biggest gaps that happen, especially for moms. We are overtouched, we are exhausted, we are tired. So what tend to happen is that time where we talk about the boundary is just after the boundary is broke.
That's right.
So then we get into that almost fighting of you did it wrong, this is how it's done. And one of the things that I've been doing with my mother-in-law, with my baby's grandma, is we every time that we need to talk about a boundary, we purposely do it in a peak emotional state. So they are visiting and we are having the most fantastic day at zoo and everybody's happy. That day is the day that after the baby's done, then we talk about boundary. We don't talk about boundaries or parenting choices after an issue. And then the other one that is very important that you said is going, I love how you said is it's very easy for us to feel criticized
Yeah,
because like we were talking, we feel the good girl, we feel the people pleaser, they have that baggage too. So
absolutely.
I start with acknowledging I know how much you love
Yeah,
Sam, I know that you care for our family. We are so grateful that we have you in your life, your participation and involvement. So build on all the positives. And then from that place, because what that does in the brain, like you were saying with neuroscience, is every time that you have a positive reinforcement, every time that you have some of that um, feelings, then the brain calm down, the barrier calm down. When you do it the other way and start with the fighting, then the wall come up and they are actually not hearing you. So I love, 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 love that. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we can find the strength.
Mm.
to follow through the consequence in a gentle way when initially the boundary is not respect, and how scary that can be the first couple of
Yeah.
times. So let's gonna assume, hey, I did everything good. I communicate with my mother-in-law about not yelling. I reinforce. I remember. Then, even though all of that happened according to the plan, the boundary was broke, and now my heart is palpitating because now I know that I said that this consequence was going to happen. Where moms can find that strength and that trust in their inner self and guidance for following through that consequence to
Yeah.
full the circle.
It's really difficult. Okay, so first I wanna just honor the fact that it's a really difficult thing to do, and in order to do it and protect yourself and your family and the boundary, the 3 things, right? You have to actually remember why. You have to pause, you have to reflect, you have to reassess and go, "Why is this important? Why did I do this in the first place?" And sometimes you may do that and go, "I guess that's a dumb boundary. I don't really need to have that boundary." Maybe you're gonna change your mind. But if you're not gonna change your mind and you wanna hold firm on it, it's really imperative to go back inside and trust yourself and your intuition. This is important because of X, Y, and Z. It's important because we know that children who are raised in an environment where they're yelled at are more insecure, they struggle in school, they have a harder time being friends, that maybe they turn out to be bullies, like you all of these reasons why yelling does not help your child be a happier, healthier human. And then you say, "No, we're not doing that." And maybe you give them another chance. "Look, take a minute, go into another room, take a deep breath, but we're not doing that. And the next time you yell, I'm gonna need you to leave. And I love you, and I don't want you to have to leave. So how can you stay calm? What can we do to help you stay calm?"
I absolutely love what you said. And please, everybody, write this down if you're in this journey. Because what Heather just said is the biggest thing with holding boundaries. And I think that is part of why we feel the fear of holding the boundary. And is we don't want to hurt.
Yeah.
And usually the time that we have to hold the boundary is when the boundary is broke. And Heather was clear. We need to hold the boundary with love, kindness, and calm. So
Mhm.
if the boundary is broke, and we are boiling, that's not the time to say, you need to leave my house right now. It's
Because
time
then
to
you're doing the thing you're asking them not to do, probably. Yeah.
absolutely. I love how
Yeah.
Heather say, like, calm, remember why it's important. And then I love, love, love what you said, like,
Mhm.
hey, mom, I love you. Baby, love you. We love having you here. Right now, I think that we need to have a break. We will may have to ask you to leave. In this house, we don't yell. We are looking forward for next week or next Saturday where we are seeing each other. So reinforce what Heather was saying before, that we are not criticizing them on how they behave. We are just telling them that that behavior is not welcome in our house.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
very important. The other thing that I want to share, I want to hear your opinion, is sometimes we need to reinforce the boundary calmly more than once. And this
Mhm.
happened to me because I suffered depression and for many
Mm.
years
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts. And I found that refined sugar was a trigger for that. So because of that, my toddler don't have refined sugar. And that was exposed and shared as a
That's a
boundary
hard one.
for with my mother-in-law. And it was respect. And recently, there was a time where there were cookies involved with refined sugar. And then I explode. I didn't say anything. I calmed down, all that. But then what I did was I went and assumed their best intention. So I was like, okay, what is the best intention? And then I went back and shared and what I was vulnerable into why it's important for me. So I told her, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I struggle with depression since I was 14 years old. I struggle with suicidal thoughts for 25 years. And in my experience, that is triggered by refined sugar. I don't want him to struggle in life like I did. And I know that I cannot prove that that is going to be the case for him, but I'm not willing to take the risk, and I'm scared of that. And sharing the boundary in that way, when I was actually completely vulnerable about my reason, was enough for her to have a switch. And the next couple of times was amazing how supportive she was of
Yeah.
finding alternatives.
Yeah, I love that, and that just goes to show it's really helpful to explain that stuff up front, and look, I get that we maybe shouldn't have to. We're the parent, and we set the rules, and people should follow the rules, and, it's just that that's not the way life works, and it's not the way human beings work, and so if you can say up front, "This is the way we do it, and this is why I choose that," um, and you're declaring like, "I don't really care if you like it. I don't you don't have to be mean. I don't really care if you like it. I don't need you to understand it. I just need you to honor it." But usually if we're really clear, they will be more patient and try and be more understanding. And then there are times where you blow up like you did, um, or we say something we wish we hadn't said, or we beat ourselves up. "Oh, if I just told them that up front." You're going to make mistakes. You're going to wish you'd done things differently. And the most important thing is for you to give yourself grace in those moments and to say, I am so human. I am so human. And it's normal to lose my temper sometimes. It's normal to make this mistake. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to try to make different decisions next time, but I'm not bad. I'm not broken for losing my temper or getting upset. I'm just normal. So Kristen Neff's self compassion work is game changing, I think, as a parent. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but it's all about accepting all of your feelings without judgment, but with curiosity. They come in, why am I so angry about that? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, what do I wanna do about it? Instead of, "I shouldn't be angry," or "I'm not allowed to cry," or, whatever it is. It's really beautiful. I was in the car with one of my daughters a couple of months ago, and somebody had cut us off, and I almost hit that person, and I lost my mind because whatever. I was, like, really upset, and then instantly I went into self-compassion mode, and I started petting myself, and I'm like, it's totally normal, Heather, to be really upset when you think that you and your daughter, your life is at risk. Like, that's totally normal. My kid looked at me, she's like, I didn't say anything. And I'm like, oh, I know. I'm just giving myself compassion. She's like, okay. But it works, right? Because what it does is it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and it calms you down. And then you don't have to stay angry at the person who almost caused the accident. Don't have to stay angry at yourself for reacting that way. So it's a great tip.
I love that, and I think that is part of what we are going to. I probably will need to have you back for another show
I would
because
love
the last
to.
point is going to be so big that we are not going to be able to touch it completely. But that self compassion is so important into the importance of not getting lost of only being a mom, but remember to be a whole person outside
100%.
being a mom. And I love that in that moment you were able to think about what little Heather need, not as a
Mhm.
mom but as you. And then when your
Yeah.
child was like, oh, you were like, no, 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 this is not about you or anybody else, this is about me. So as we start closing the program, why we don't talk a little bit about that, and how, what is one or two things that moms can do to don't get lost in only being a mom, but then remembering that they are a whole badass soul in
Yeah.
addition to being a mom.
Yeah. It's so important. I'll tell you, I love Threads. I've been using Threads a lot since it launched, and I put a whole get to know me. I pinned a whole get to know me thing at the top, and I spent a lot of time, like, what order did I wanna put things in? And I've been a parent for almost 20 years, and I almost always lead with, I'm a transformational success coach and a mom of 4, and I didn't. I put it, like, 10th on my list. And I love being a mom, and I'm so grateful and proud to have my children, but it is just one part of who I am, just like being queer is a part of who I am, it is not who I am, and being a coach is part of who I am, but it's not who I am, right? So, you you are so many things. You are so dynamic, you are so beautiful, and you give so much to the world. Culture doesn't want you to show up in all of those ways. But we're shifting. It's shifting now. There's a challenge. It's interesting. So in mom groups, you go in and you immediately go, "Oh, well, I'm Olivia's mom," and whatever. You save each other's numbers in your phones as Heather, Olivia's mom. Like I do it too, right? We don't know each. And then if it's work, you go into work and you say, "Oh, I'm Heather. I'm a coach." Play around with when somebody says, "Oh, tell me about you." Don't start with that. Find other things that make you amazing and special and practice because it's not easy to do. And who are you as a whole person? Make sure that you are creating time for yourself to do things that bring you joy outside of parenthood. I am not suggesting that you don't love parenthood, that doesn't bring you joy. I hope that it does. Certainly, it should be doing that. But make sure you're doing other things and bringing in other activities in your life that remind you of all of your wholeness and all of the gifts you give out into the world. And find those moments of joy. This is a great idea. And I love this. You could keep a little list, a little joy list, and challenge yourself to what are the things that brought you joy today that have nothing to do with your kids? And keep a list. And then maybe before you go to bed or first thing in the morning, you just read your little list and say, "Oh, today I got to have this great conversation with Joe and it was lovely. And I just had so much joy looking out at all the snow that's out in front of my window. And my coffee tasted so good and it was so warm," and like whatever their little joys are. Or I got to go on a trip, or I got to read a book or take a bath or whatever. Remind yourself of all of those other things because we get so singularly focused on being a mom that we do forget everything else. And that does not help our kids, does not help them be whole and rounded people.
I love, love, love that. Heather, as we are closing, why you don't share a little bit about how the audience can reach out to you if they are falling in love with what you are saying, with your approach, if they feel called into learning more about you, how they can find you, how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super easy to find. My kids think it's amazing, especially when they were younger. They think I'm a celebrity because if you put my name in Google, my picture pops right up. And I didn't have the heart to tell them it was just good SEO. But my website is vickeryandco.com. And from there, you can find all of my social links. I'm super active on Instagram and Threads. I have a TikTok channel. Um, I'm not so active on Facebook, but you can find me there. I'm sort of active on LinkedIn, but you can find me in all of those places. And really, I invite you to come in and play. I do a live show every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central. And again, I have the Spark Collective, which is an $8 a month membership, a way for you to just give yourself a little love and compassion and attention. I promise you, it will make you a healthier, happier, more joy-filled parent, which leads to healthier, happier, more joy-filled kids. So I'm super easy to find. I connect with everybody directly. Send me a message if you'd like to chat. If you have any questions, you want to get to know me better, come and hang out with me. Send me an email. So vickeryandco.com is the best place, and you can find all of the information, all of the links there.
Thank you so much, Heather. It was a pleasure talking with you. For sure, we need to have part two of this conversation because we just scratched the surface. So, everybody that is watching us today, please, please, please go and find Heather. Share with her if you have an aha moment from today and consider her membership to help you to navigate on this journey of this marathon of motherhood. And then when you are in social media, finding her and liking her, if you are not following me yet, please go also Joe Unicorn Coach. Remember, people like Heather and I are part of your team, and we want you to be successful. You don't have to do this alone. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it.